Sear, our non-stimulant, thermogenic, and recomposition agent. Sear is a super cool product because it's going to help you utilize turning your white adipose tissue, which is for storage of fat, into brown adipose tissue, which is going to help with energy production. So this is great to use for a competition prep or in your weight loss phase. So you can stack it with a stimulant-based thermogenic, or you could also use it in your off-season or muscle building phase to help keep you lean and mean. Sear.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code. We got a special guest today, guys. We got the one and only IFBB Bikini Pro and Coach Pro Physique, Maria Nemethy. What's up, Maria?
Hey, what's up? Happy to be here.
Our other co-host, Lexie. What's up, Lexie?
How are you guys? I feel like I just saw you guys, but I know we were talking about that, but good to have you on here, Maria.
Thanks.
Yeah, so if anybody's wondering, well, this will come out a week from now, but we just had like a tropical storm / hurricane pass through. Definitely added a little interest to the weekend.
Yeah, it sure did. Somebody told me yesterday that they said that they feel like tropical storms are sometimes, I don't want to say worse than hurricanes, but like I don't live right by the beach. And I'm sure hurricanes are a lot worse when you live around the beach, but I felt like compared to all the little hurricane scares we've had in the past years, this almost seemed worse, like just with rain and wind, at least for me. I don't know.
So honestly, the wind and the rain are what does the damage, especially when you don't live right on the water. The storm surge can be bad too. But if they go slow, like this one was kind of slow and just hung around all day.
Yeah.
Quite annoying. Yeah. So
yeah, it was pretty gross and gloomy all day. And I don't know about you.
It actually kind of worked out for the show, because if it would have been a day earlier, I think that show would have gotten a lot smaller.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
It honestly was perfect timing because when I left, and you were probably the same, Maria, because I think we left around the same time on Saturday. It was kind of starting to rain right after like prejudging ended. So I think that timing was perfect.
Yeah, I didn't really hit much rain going back to Orlando, so that was perfect timing because I think if I would have waited longer, I would have hit way more.
So we've been talking a lot this year about numbers for shows. And I think, at least at this show, the trend continued. This was the smallest I've ever seen the Tampa NPC extravaganza, it's called.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. I got there at right before 10 o'clock and you had said that NPC was already done.
Yeah,
Yeah, they finished prejudging in an hour and a half, maybe like 9:30.
Yeah, because I had a couple clients that wanted to come and watch, and I said, "Oh yeah, get there maybe around like 9:30. I think you'll be there in time to see amateur bikini and pro bikini." And oh my gosh, I think pro or amateur bikini prejudging it was done before 10. It was quick, but they also didn't do individual routines at prejudging. They did that last year too. So I think
They stopped doing that a couple years ago because they were running into the pro show, which
okay,
even the pro show used to be a little bit bigger, because this Tampa before COVID was the last Olympia qualifier. So anybody, and back when they had the point system, back when anybody needed a point, when anyone needed a win, I mean, I remember there were years with over 400 pros competing. So, there were years that I was at this show that I did not leave till after 1 a.m. Because of like the bikini overall would end at 1 in the morning. So this year was significantly smaller. I heard a number of like 100. They had 100 NPC competitors, and then I heard like last year was 170. So if that's true, that's a pretty significant change. You could check on NPC News Online. The data is all there once they come out with the stuff.
yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, I always used to think, I remember you told me this, Paul, a couple years ago, because I always used to think, oh, Tampa Pro, this is like a huge, huge show. And I think it is for like pros and the amount of pro divisions that compete. But I think you told me a couple years ago, you were like, it's not a huge amateur show. But the number.
Yeah, I don't know and I've never understood that. Especially, I thought, okay, you've got Tyler Mannion and you've got Steve Weinberger judging. That's what every girl and every guy in the sport want to get in front of those two, right? I was very underwhelmed with the numbers of like bodybuilding, classic physique, men's physique. There were some really good competitors, but even the bikini overall winner was a true novice, which, that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Yeah, overall, I think it was a fun weekend. And then I know this will come out on Monday, but I'm looking forward to Texas this weekend as well. That'll be another fun, long weekend, but really awesome show.
Yeah, Texas will be fun because both the girls I have going to Texas are going to look really good. They're both very conditioned. Lana has made, some significant improvements since Republic of Texas. So it'll be fun to see her. Obviously, Issa's the favorite with just winning Tampa, but it's 2 weeks. You never know how the body can change, and that's our job. And then Lana and I will probably pivot and do another show, assuming that we're still doing well and feel like we can move up.
That's awesome. Who's your second girl doing it? I'm trying to pull up the
Nicole
list.
Hermanson.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
she competed with you last year, right?
Yeah, she did.
I did not know she was
She
in
did
prep.
Pittsburgh Pro, and she did Miami.
That's right. Okay.
So
Okay.
then we took time off to bring her glutes up a little bit more. She's a stunning girl. I mean, just great
Yeah.
muscularity, beautiful girl, great shape. So yeah, it'll be a fun lineup to get her into.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Cool.
And then I also have Erin Gales and Lizzie doing the Tahoe show on the same day. So
Yeah, I did see that. I guess I didn't even realize that these two shows fell on the same weekend because Tahoe seems like a very neat show too.
yeah, and I got a bunch. Well, so actually, I said that wrong. Friday is Pro Bikini for Texas,
Yes, that's right.
and then Saturday
okay,
for Tahoe. Because that was the show a couple times. People did like the show on Tahoe on Sunday. They would do like both.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Ashley K, right?
They did that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's so right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of throwing me off that the pro show for Texas is on Friday. Because I know I fly in the morning, but I'm going to be able to watch finals. But I know I kind of wish it was on Saturday, but it's all right.
Yeah, they have all the pro divisions. So Daraja won that show a couple of years ago. So it was nice when she got her win to like hang out the next day and just watch the pro bodybuilders. And I had a couple of NPC girls. So, and it's a big event for us because you're going to be there. Evan's going to be there. Daraja is going to be there. Jess is going to be there.
Yeah.
I think Stephanie's coming. So we
I
got
think she is.
You guys are gonna
Steven's
have a
coming.
squad.
Yeah, so we're doing a seminar on Sunday at Hidden Gym, which we don't even talk about anymore because it's sold out right away. I think we sold the spots out immediately. So we're going to do a little couple presentations, some posing and some Q&A stuff, and just, have a fun day. And then I get back Sunday and turn right around and go to Nashville next weekend. So
Nice.
I'll see you in Nashville.
what are you doing there? Oh,
I'm
Kathy's got
yeah. Kathy's
Nice.
walking in the fashion show and I'm gonna MC for it. So
Very exciting, very exciting.
yeah, it'll be fun.
I feel like that's going to be Lana's going to have a really good shot at that show. By the time this comes out, we'll already know the list. We don't know it now, but
Yeah.
like looking at the Tahoe list and, we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping we can get into a really good lineup.
Yeah. Well, shall we dive into our topic for today?
Yeah. How long should it take you to get your pro card?
How long, Paul?
It's probably it's a very unique question to ask because I've seen it go both ways. I've seen 2 shows and I've seen 13 shows, right? Like I've seen it both ways, and there's good and bad of both, right? So I've seen girls turn pro in 2 or 3 shows and then retire after 5. And then I've also seen competitors, it take them 13 to 15 shows to get their pro card, and then they do great. So, it just depends. If you're only in the sport because you're winning, you're probably not going to last a long, long time.
Yeah.
That's true.
I think a big part of it, like for starters, really does start too with like, okay, where are you when you start, right? Because if we're talking somebody who gets their pro card within their first season, well, maybe they started at a little bit of a later age when they have more of that muscle density. Maybe they've been living the lifestyle for, 10 plus years compared to somebody who's a lot younger who may have, has lifted for maybe 2 years. And then in that case, that may take the younger competitor a little bit longer. So I think it's important when evaluating how long is it going to take, evaluating like, where are you starting? Have you been lifting for years and years, or are you somebody who's relatively just newer to lifting in general and on the younger side? Because talk a little bit to Maria. So I guess maybe start off by talking about your background a little bit, because I know you had a background in athletics before even getting into this lifestyle. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny that you bring up someone who, is newer to the sport, might take them a little bit longer versus someone else who has muscle and has been kind of living the lifestyle for a while and, getting it right away, which was not my case. So I didn't do my first show until I was 30, but I had a background in gymnastics growing up. Then I did competitive cheerleading, what's the tumbler. And my earliest memories of being in the gym was when I was 16 with my mom. She showed me around the gym and I just fell in love with it. And so I, had that as a background and just always loved lifting. And I was like, how can I take this to the next level? So that's when I started, looking into bodybuilding a little bit more. And it I wanted to start when I was about 25. I remember looking into it more because people kept coming up to me at the gym and were just like, "Oh, like, are you training for a bodybuilding competition?" I'm like, "No, like, just in here for fun. Like, this is what I do." And so I was like, as the questions started coming up more and more, I was like, well, let me start diving into it. And then I ended up meeting my fiance shortly after. And I was like, well, maybe diving into a diet right now is not the most ideal thing. So I always just kind of kept it in the back of my mind. And then it wasn't until 30, I was like, all right, I sat down with him and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is what it's going to take. Like, are you cool with me doing it? And he was like, absolutely. We have our hobbies and he had his. And so he was like, go for it. And, and here I am still doing it. But yeah, it was, it's been quite the journey. As Paul knows, we did this together. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I actually have some interesting insight because when Maria came to me, she was already a really good athlete. It wasn't, I think you had gotten third at nationals, or what did you get the year before?
So I won my first regional show. I won the overall, and that's what kind of really got me hooked. And then I did nationals in 2019 and got fifth in my
Fifth,
class.
that's what it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
fifth.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we started, it was like the following season. And I think our first show together was a pretty big deal. Like that, you know what's, I
San
don't want to,
Antonio.
yeah, and I don't want to sound like one of those old guys that's like, back in the day, these shows were really hard. But it's like, I just remember that overall. I just remember that show and how deep it was. It was Sandy was the head judge in San
Hmm.
Antonio. And I mean, that show was deep. And Tyler was there too. They were
Yeah.
both at that San Antonio Pro Show, and they had 8 girls in the overall, and you smoked it. Like you won it. Um, and I just remember like how good, I think I had another girl in the overall too, and it was just a really good lineup. And I remember thinking, wow,
Was.
you're gonna turn pro so easy at nationals, which was only what, a few weeks later.
2 weeks later, yeah, we did nationals, and that's where I got third.
Yeah, yeah. And then you had a flaw in your physique,
Yes.
at the time, which was you didn't have a lot of like glute depth, upper glutes, which,
Hmm.
I think most girls can relate to that. But the thing was you had so much everything else. Like your physique was so polished. And I sat with your friend at nationals, like she's like your best friend, but she's not like a competitor or anything. But I
Hmm.
just
Yeah, Brittany.
I was like, because I've always been in awe of your physique. And I was asking her, I was like, did she always just look like this? She's like, mm-hmm. She was always the one, all the muscles, she always looked great. Like she said from a very young age, you had like just like that kind of a wow factor to your physique. So I mean, there is, like, if you're talking about how long it's going to take someone to turn pro, there is that element of it. There is that either, genetic predisposition, but also, you were involved in a sport that augmented your muscularity.
Hmm. That and always, already training for, 15 years. I wouldn't say like consistently, but, had that muscle already built up. So,
And I'm
but
curious, before you started competing or before you started your first prep, during those years, I'm assuming like when you were younger, when you were in gymnastics and cheer, you probably weren't doing this, but had you ever like intentionally dieted before that? Or were you always kind of just somebody that either ate, maintenance or just gave your body what it needed?
Yeah, before I started competing, I really pretty much ate whatever I wanted. I was never one to diet, I knew when to like reel things in a little bit, but I would never say I went through any harsh diets before. So I think like that's why my body responded very well with my first prep. It's because I didn't have that harsh dieting history. So that
Yeah.
definitely helped.
And I think like I like hearing that. That's cool to hear because I feel like I don't know. I feel like one of the worst things you can do, especially if you're trying to build muscle and you're newer to lifting or you're just newer into the sport, is putting yourself through a lot of diets at the beginning because you're just kind of cutting yourself short of those like newbie gains that you can make. So I think it's really neat to hear that like you weren't somebody that chronically dieted early on in life because I feel like mean, who knows? You probably would have been, I don't want to say wasting a little bit of that muscle potential, but who knows, how much muscle you would have put on if that were the case compared to where you were at when you started this sport.
Right, right, definitely. I mean, I will say I went through my like little cardio bunny stage. I used to love running. I remember actually,
Me
you
too.
too.
I feel like we had a very similar background in athletics, like gymnastics, cheer, and then running. Like that's kind of how it unfolded for me.
Oh yeah, I loved it. I remember one day I was living out by UCF and I just woke up one morning and I was like, I want to go for a run. I ended up running 10 miles that day. I get back and Brittany was like, my roommate, Brittany, she was like, where have you been? And I was like, oh, I just went for a run. And she was like, for 3 hours? I'm like, it was like two.
That's so
Yeah.
well, I'm curious when you were in gymnastics, or not even in, but like after you got out, did you get asked for a while, like just by random people? Would you ever get asked, are you a gymnast? Because like I feel like that was something that I got asked all the time after I quit was like, are you a gymnast? You look like a gymnast. And I guess like there's a look. I never really
Definitely, gymnasts have a
Yeah.
posture to them. They have like the
okay.
way you carry yourself as a gymnast. It's very, yeah. My
Okay.
daughter's
Yeah.
getting into
Oh,
gymnastics, and I just see the little girls. They're like 6 years old, and they're like,
Okay, the posture, that makes sense. Cause I remember getting stopped one time randomly in a Starbucks by like some old dude, not in like a creepy way, but just asked me if I was a gymnast in Starbucks. And I'm like, I had nothing on that would signify that I was a gymnast. And I was just so like taken back by it.
I still to this day will have people say like, "Oh, did you do gymnastics or something?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So
yeah.
let's talk a little bit about the next step for you, because you grinded a little bit, Maria. We definitely ran into some speed bumps with different shows. Um, and I feel like you always just ran into these like phenomenal competitors. Like, every time we would be ready to go, there'd be someone in front of you.
Steve. Yes. Yeah, and I will say like I felt like every year it did get like a little harder and harder, like just the competition, but also just like I feel like our preps every single year, it's like
Yeah.
2020 was pretty much a breeze. We cruised in the 2021, although we came in too lean that year.
That was
Um,
the
you
striated
know,
glutes here.
Yeah, but we filled out and got third at Universe,
Yep.
7 weeks later. That's the one that, Kathy and I kind of cheered each other on and she won the overall there.
Oh,
Um,
I remember that one because I remember I was there and you guys like roomed together.
yeah. So
Yeah, and neither of them were in first call outs at Junior USA's, and then they both went and moved way up at that one. Yeah.
yeah. So, but it just goes to show that like, I mean, every prep is going to be different. You never know what to expect, but also just the level of competition just changed every single year. And just like, it was like just a little bit off, and some of that could be, we know my glutes were always kind of the lagging part of my physique, but, posing could have always been better. So, there's, little things like that, but yeah. So it was definitely a grind. So where do you want to start at?
Well, I think the thing that I want to impart upon people is I think people don't enjoy that part of the process as much as they should. They're so focused on getting the pro card that, I've had girls like yourself that were always third, fourth, fifth, second at national shows. Like you even got second at North Americans when they only give out Pro Card at the first, and then third at nationals when it's the top two, right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, were you able to enjoy your success at points? And was there points where you just got like frustrated?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a great question because actually I had on the questionnaire I did a couple of these of, what were the ups and downs and how did you get through it? And if I didn't enjoy the sport, I wouldn't have been able to keep going when it was just like off by a little bit, being, losing my pro card or not getting it how many times? 3 times by one placing. And I actually heard a quote yesterday that like definitely resonated with me, but it was you may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. And that like stuck with me because if I would have just let like defeat after defeat, like just I don't want to do it anymore, I wouldn't be here today. And I don't know, I just love the sport. I had no reason to quit. I was like, that's not in me to do that. I had a goal. And at first it was just to get on stage. Like when I got into bodybuilding, I was like, I had no intentions of going pro. I was just like, let me just see if I even enjoy it, enjoy the process. And then I was immediately hooked. And that's, I think, what keeps you going is being able to, see it as more than just a win. And those loses were, I learned something like national junior nats last year was probably one of my favorite shows. Like even though when we got off the stage prejudging, I knew right then and there, I was like, it's not me this time. Like I knew I didn't win it. And but it was okay. Like I just had this like moment of just like, but I get to be here and like I'm having so much fun. We had so much fun
Yeah.
backstage. And it was just like this overall experience that I mean, I just love the
Well,
process
well,
and
I don't know if you remember, but a few weeks before that, you actually got third in your class at a show in DC.
which, oh yeah,
So it was like
yeah.
that was supposed to be our warm up before junior nationals. You're third in your class,
Was that
and
Oh yeah.
was that the
I
show
think
that Ali Hauer won
she
the
won the overall, and then she won the overall junior national. That was just Allie's year.
your
Just Allie
class?
was like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Allie
yeah.
was Allie was
She
the
was
talk of
on.
the sport that year. She was just on fire.
Yeah.
And obviously that was Maria's class at every show she did.
Yeah.
So at DC though, what happened was after getting third, I ran into Tyler after the show. I think Maria, you had gone upstairs. I
Yes.
stayed and just thought, because Tyler doesn't, at that point, he does more now, but he wasn't staying for feedback. So I was like, well, let me talk to Etala. And I got Tyler and I showed him the pictures and he's like, oh, wow, no, that was one of the best classes I've ever judged in the NPC. They're all going to be pros. And I think I texted Maria. I said, "Run down here," and you got to talk to him. I think that helped.
Yeah. Yeah. And he gave me the little tip with like just changing my wrist a little bit to tone
Yeah,
down my shoulder.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
then obviously followed that up by second at junior nationals, and then at Universe. I just remember seeing you the day before in the gym, and we're posing, and I'm like, "This is it. This is the look. Like there's no one beating this tomorrow." So it was a very fulfilling day when they moved, like literally called out the group, first call outs, moved you right to center, had somebody else next to you in and out a couple times, and that was it. I was like, yeah, it's just funny how fast it goes though, right? It's like all that work and all of a sudden you're in the middle and it's over.
Yeah. Oh, it was nuts. But even going back, so if we even go back to the Arnold, like that year, last
Yeah.
year, that I will say was a very hard one for me to recover from because we had put so much work in, I felt like, and I was just like, this is it. I mean, I know I will never go into a show like that ever again. Well, obviously. But I was just like, man, I was like, afterwards, I remember, I went out, I got home and I spoke with my fiance and I was like, I don't know if I should continue like this year. Like, feel like I just need to like take a break, maybe. I don't know. I was just kind of defeated. And he was like, no, you need to like go redeem yourself. you can do this. And so that's what kind of, you also were like, just take a weekend to like think about it. And that really like got me back in gear. And I was like, okay, yes, I can do this. You know, we took a few
Yeah.
months off kind of maintaining. But for me, I was like, okay, it's only the beginning of March, and the next show, national show that we'll do, where we were looking at Junior Nats, which is in June. So I was like, there's no way.
Right.
So yeah,
The Arnold, for that reason, for anyone listening, the Arnold is a very like, for most of my competitors, I say that's the only show we're going to do if we do that, because it's so early in the year. I think it's 9 weeks until Junior USA's, which, oh, you're like 9 weeks. But you got to remember, you're shredded and you got to stay there for 9 more
already
weeks.
that was tough.
It's a long. I've had very few girls. This year, Kaylia actually made it and won her class at Junior USA's after winning her class at the Arnold. So like, you can do it, but
Yeah.
it's a long,
I feel
yeah.
like it definitely probably takes a special client mentally too. Like I think that because you definitely, if you did that show and then like with Kaylia, doing that show and then Junior USA's, I mean, I think it takes a special person too, like with their relationship with food, because you know you don't want to have that little rebound in between. So, but you know, like in the back of your head, you still are kind of essentially in prep. So, yeah, that is difficult. And I'm curious, Maria, your class what, C or D, right?
Indeed.
Okay, yeah. As I, like Paul said, when you did the DC Pro, I remember watching that show from afar, and like I feel like it, not at every show, but I feel like that class like C, D is always just really, really stacked. It's like that you always, I feel like, get a lot of competition within those classes. I think like this past weekend, even at Tampa Pro, that I don't think it was class C, but it was like class B maybe, and they had like a lot of girls, and then the next class had two. You know, it was, so it's
Oh,
always,
wow.
yeah, it's always crazy how stacked some of those like middle of the realm classes can be.
Yeah. I think gosh, when was it? I think it was nationals in 2019. Class D, I think we had like 32 at the time. I mean, I know that's going back a little bit and classes were all much bigger, but yeah, they are pretty stacked. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah, it's always. And I mean, you know, you were competing probably at the peak of the sport when the national shows were typically 250, you know.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I just looked at the numbers for USA's. I think it was 130, you know, which that's okay. It's an okay size, but gone are the days of the 250s, you know, on a regular basis. USA's and nationals used to always be that big. Nationals still carries a good amount of competitors. I think because it's a kind of standalone and it's in Texas last year, it was really big. But, you know, also just thinking back to like, you know, some of the regional shows back then. What's funny is about that San Antonio show. Do you remember? I think you were class E at that show for some reason. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
It
I
was
don't
like
know.
the most random height class for you.
Class
I've
E.
never been. Yeah,
Yeah.
never been class E, but they measured me as class E and I was like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah, you're class E. But
And then, I
so
Interesting.
mean, I
what I
remember
did.
that show thinking you were way too lean. You were like so lean, we were trying to fill you out. But then the lighting kind
The
of softened
lighting.
everyone up. So you were actually the only one that looked like you were in shape and you were almost overly conditioned.
Yeah. I actually was looking at those photos the other day and yeah, the lighting, I remember that's kind of what saved us there.
Yeah,
So
I have the gym. Still have videos from you that week in the gym. They're
mm,
like crazy. You like fully striated every, you know, fiber of your shoulder. What's funny is like coaches goggles back then, like looking at you, I was like, oh, she's flawless. Now I look back and I go, oh yeah, her glutes weren't big enough. Like it's funny how you get so locked in on your competitor that you don't see the flaw.
Right.
oh
Well,
yeah, I mean, I feel like we both did, especially like in, 2021, right before Junior USA's. I mean, I go back now and I'm like, see the same thing. I'm like, man, I had no glutes. Like I had, the glute lines,
Well,
obviously,
I
and
think
tie-ins,
early
but
on when I first started coaching in this sport, the tie-in was the most important thing, getting that tie-in
mhm,
to come in. Then it's kind of transitioned now they want volume at the top of the glute. The tie-in is almost a bonus.
yeah.
You've got to have some, but you know, I don't think anybody would look at Jen Dory, who won the Olympia, and be like, look how sharp her tie-ins were. It was more her volume and the shape that was there.
Mhm.
Now if you see somebody with an etched in tie in, it's almost like, ooh, that's a little too much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, Maria, because something you said a couple minutes ago about your fiance after the Arnold Amateur, like how he was very supportive of like, no, you need to go redeem yourself. Do you think like theoretically if he would have kind of said, I agree with you. I think maybe you deserve a break or you should take a break. Do you think you would have and not have gotten on stage that year and maybe have kind of taken some time away?
I would say yeah, because I feel like just our communication on just, I think you need that communication and you need that support. Not that he wouldn't be supportive if I did decide to continue on, but I think just, coming to a decision together. If he thought that was best, I probably would have also just been, not to sound like, okay, whatever he says goes, but it's a kind of a group thing. And so yeah, no, I think I would have, because I was already at that point in my mind, I was already leaning towards that way. So if he would have been like, yeah, agreed with me and been like, yeah, maybe you should take the year off, I probably would have. But, that little fight, he was just like, no, just go do it. Like, you can do
I
this.
love
And
that
I was
he
like,
I love that he said that. Like I just think having that support, not that absolutely have to have it, but it helps so much, whether it's your significant other or your family or your best friend. Like it certainly, I think, helps to have those people's support and having them kind of nudge you in that direction that they know you should go in.
I agree. And like I'm so thankful for my family being so supportive, especially after years and years of competing. Cause like I remember having a conversation with my mom as before the national shows. I don't know if I'd done DC yet, but she would always be like, Maria, you've done so much. Like, you could stop now and just you've done a lot. And I'm like, right, but like this is my goal. Like I'm doing this for me. Like I'm not doing it like for anyone else. This is what I set my mind to and this is what I want. And she was like, well, then go get it. And I was like, I will. And it was shortly after, I think, and that might have been after junior nats. Um, like I said, it was right around then. So, universe, I called her and I was like, I did it.
Aw,
But
I love
again,
that.
like, having that support, I think really does help because if I didn't have that, I mean, even when, COVID times, if we go back to then, like I decided to prep in the midst of COVID and, I saw shows were coming back, but like we were living down in Miami area with TJ's mom for a little bit. And again, I had to be like, hey guys, are you cool if I like decide to prep? And they're like, yeah, go for it. If we're not doing anything.
Right. Well, I think like most of the time with family, especially moms, at least I found this to be the case with my mom, like they just want you to be happy, right? So like if they see you competing and doing this, but really enjoying yourself and like they know that like that's your purpose, that's what you love doing, like they usually will support that if they know it's making you happy. It's different if you're doing it and acting like you're miserable all the time, right? But if you really show it in like a positive way and you yeah, or a way and that it fulfills you, I feel like they're just naturally a little bit more likely to support.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She definitely heard some of my like, I am so tired. And she's like, well, why are you doing it? And I'm like, because I want to do it. Bless you, Paul. But yeah, no, I feel like yeah, she was very supportive about it. Even my dad, after, a couple of my shows, he like called me and he's like, dude, that is so cool what you're doing. And he knew I didn't win whatever show it was. It was after a national show. He knew I was like kind of like, yeah, it was cool, but and he was like, but it's so cool. Like you're doing what most people aren't doing and aren't capable of doing. And so it's just great to have that kind of, support in the sport.
Yeah. Another question I have for you is I feel like a lot of competitors have this thought at least one time in their journey, but did you ever have the thought, like as you kept getting so close to your pro card each time, did you ever have the thought of like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not cut out for this? 'Cause I feel like that goes through a lot of people's minds. So I'm curious, like if you had those thoughts and kind of what you did to steer yourself in the opposite direction and not fall down that rabbit hole.
Yes. I mean, there were definitely multiple times like, your cardio thoughts, just like, you know, after being, you know, so close so many times, it was like, well, maybe I'm just not meant to be in the IFBB. Like maybe I'm just, you know, I should just be happy with where I'm at, which I was. You know, it was just kind of, I had to talk myself through it and just be like, you know, if I'm putting in the work and I'm doing, you know, checking all the boxes, like there's no reason why I can't be worthy of, you know, earning my pro card too. And I just have to keep working for it no matter what. You know, if that means taking time off, if that means, you know, whatever I need to do, I just have to get through it. And so, yeah, I mean, but don't get me wrong, it definitely crept into my mind a couple of times, but just had to be like, nope, it's fine. I can, you know,
Yeah,
but don't think that way.
one of my favorite stories was always Kathy Seitz. We had a really big heart to heart after Junior USA's that year that you guys both did it. And, you know, she told me, she's like, listen, I put everything into the sport. I literally go to work and go to the gym, and that's all I do. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have, you know, a lot of close friends. And she's like, am I wasting my time? And I was like, listen, and she had just won the overall at the Clash, which was again,
Yeah.
a huge show. Like, you know, we're talking 10 to 12 per class at the Clash that year. So walking away with that overall, we went to Junior USA's with an expectation. And when that expectations aren't met, that's when competitors get hurt, right? That really, and, you know, and they're good to have, you know, oh, I'm good, I should move up, but they can also just ruin the sport for a lot of people. So she gave me this heart to heart talk, and she's like, I know the next show is Junior Nationals. I think I want to take a little more time and just focus on Universe. And I was like, perfect. And, you know, had she called it, she wouldn't have got her pro card. She wouldn't have won that overall. Like, she was able to do some things. So I think that's a lesson for a lot of competitors. You don't know what's about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The result you just got does not dictate what's going to happen. It can feel devastating in the moment, and it can feel like, but the things can change really quickly in this sport if you just keep working.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah.
mean, never, I mean, there were times like, you know, I get off stage and I was like, damn, like it happened again. And it was just like, well, now what am I gonna do? And it's like, I'm gonna keep going. Like that's all you can do because you, like you said, you never know. It's gonna change from show to show. You never know who's gonna show up, how much you're gonna improve, you know, what the judges are gonna see that time. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think something else that probably, I mean, if I had to guess what has carried you, you know, through the sport all this time is when you started, it sounds like you kind of started with no expectations. It wasn't like you were starting right off the get-go of like, all right, I'm going to win my first show, then I'm going to go to nationals, I'm going to turn pro at my first show. Like you just kind of started with, I'm going to do this because it seems fun and I'm already an athlete. Like it sounds like you just got into it with no expectations. And I think we talk about this all the time, but I feel like if you get into things with too many expectations, then and those expectations are not met, then that's when you see a lot of people struggling and having a very short-lived time in this sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. I like, yeah, I went in zero expectations. I was like, I just want to get up on stage, see what I can do. I'd never got my physique to that level of conditioning. And so it was so cool to see. Like, I just enjoyed the process so much every time. Like, it was just like, you know, every check-in, I was so excited. And, you know, and I know we like when, you know, I started working with you, Paul, in 2020, we definitely set out the intention to get a pro card and just, you know, based on the feedback we were getting from the judges and everything. And I mean, it just, in the end though, it was just, I wasn't doing it just for that. You know,
Sure.
I think we can get so caught up in like, this is my goal though, and this is what I want to do. But like, if you cannot enjoy, you know, the grind of going into it, the, you know, prepping every meal, doing your cardio, training, like it, and even in your off season too, that's not even just in prep, like, but if you can't enjoy the whole entire process, and you're just not going to last. It's just, it's going to be really tough. All you want is that pro card.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the thing that I really appreciate is the competitors that, like yourself, the result is the goal, but it doesn't dictate how you handle yourself. You know, like whether or not you're in prep, I know you're hitting some protein goals, you're hitting the gym consistently. You know, the difference is in prep, you just, you know, cutting out a few calories and maybe a few nights at the bar or whatever it is, and just, you know, you're putting more focus on there. So you don't see these huge changes from prep to off prep. It's just, you know, they're just moderate changes. So yeah, how long should it take you to get your pro card? Gosh, I just think that there's too many variables there. Genetics and history are going to dictate the majority of it. I've seen some girls with just incredible genetics that just, I mean, they can literally just stand up there and look like a pro their first couple shows, right? And then the other competitors, it takes some years to do that. And both journeys can be amazing. So the thing you cannot do is compare your journey to anyone else's. I remember the year Daraja turned pro and got her Olympia qualification. I had a lot of competitors like quit because I had been coaching girls for a few years, and then Daraja goes to Tampa, wins the overall, North Americans wins the overall, pro debut wins, and second pro show wins, and they're like, what's happening? This girl just came out of nowhere and just did all this. And I'm like, yeah, but that's her journey. That was what she had done, all the stuff to lead her to there. You can't compare. But I had girls like, oh, well, if it's that easy, and I should have done it by now. So, you know, it stings because you don't want people to compare themselves to other people's journey.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Yeah, because you see it all over social media, and it's hard to, I mean, you just have to put your blinders on and just, you know, support those that are doing it, but understand that that's not you and you're going to do it your way no matter what. So,
Right. Yeah. It is hard. I think, you know, it's much easier said than done to put on those blinders, because it is hard to not look at somebody else's journey and think, oh gosh, wow, like you know, and I think as a competitor, sometimes you're like, oh, well, you know, you see somebody rise to success so quickly, you know, and obviously they deserve it, but sometimes it's easy to think, well, I've been working so hard too, I've been working for longer, like, well, why haven't I gotten there yet, right? Am I cut out for this? But yeah, it is really important to just lean into your own journey and write your own book, write your own story. I mean, that's the unique and awesome part of this sport.
yeah. So I did get a question that said, what has changed before and after earning your pro card?
Oh, I love this question. Yes,
I
yes.
thought it was a good one. And I will say, not much. My Instagram handle.
Yes,
I mean, I
Maybe
guess
that frame on the wall, that picture on the wall behind you.
Oh yeah, where are we at? Oh hey.
oh, that's funny. Isn't that like the thing to do to change your Instagram handle? Because I've seen some girls recently, like they'll have somebody take a video of them after they get their pro card, like in their phone,
Oh, I
changing
did.
their name with the IFBB Pro at the end.
Oh, I did. I was like, I've been waiting to do this. I'm gonna do it right now.
I
Um,
think the other day, at Universe, Stephanie Ortiz changed it before she came out from backstage. Like I hadn't
Oh,
seen her yet. And I went to tag her and it's like user does not exist. And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh, she was quick then. You know what? She may be the one I was thinking, maybe it was her, because I want to say recently I saw an Instagram video of somebody else was recording the person who had just turned pro in their phone, changing their username. It may have been her now that I think about it.
Yeah,
yeah,
well, her and Kayla, were you guys at Universe this year? You weren't at Universe?
No.
I wasn't know.
So I don't know if anybody that was there would remember this because it was quite significant. So Stephanie was in class B, she gets her pro card, and then they hold everybody for the overall. Kayla was in class like F, E or F. Let's say E. She gets her pro card, and then when she walks backstage to the holding area where they had Stephanie, you just hear them like scream, like
Aw.
ah, like the
Aw.
announcer stops and was like, "Do y'all hear that? Someone's happy," you know, like, and I could tell it was Kayla and Stephanie because I just knew them. So like, it was really funny, you know, the fact
That's
that they got to.
adorable.
So it might have been Kayla filming Stephanie or vice versa. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cute. I saw the hug. She came up to you
Oh my
afterwards.
gosh, she did
That's
this like
so
little
cute.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was, you know, because we got unfavorable feedback after junior nationals. She was, you know, she was told you need more muscle, which,
Mm.
you know, from a judge's perspective, that all they know is like how muscular you look. But I told her, I said, listen, we come down another pound or two and I can feed you more. It's going to change your look completely. And she stood out. Like when she walked out of that group that they put her right in the middle, I was like, man, it's not close. Like she popped that day.
She's beautiful
Oh,
too. Like she's one of
For
those
sure.
that when you told me, Paul, a couple months ago that she was, because I think, can't remember, was it Girl Power or Clash? I
Yeah.
remember you said something about her being in Masters, and I'm like, wait, what? Are we thinking?
I think she's 39.
I know. I was like, you told me that, and I was like, wait, are we thinking of the same person? And I
Yeah.
mean, I would never guess she's that age, but I mean, I think that definitely can set you apart in the Masters division when you have that super youthful
Well,
look.
she almost took her pro
mhm.
card and open. I think she got third too. So
I could see that.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, 39. Yeah, I would never guess. I mean, but I remember a couple years ago learning that Miriam Jenkins at the time, she was like, she said she was 56. And I remember I was like, what?
oh,
Like,
yeah, saw her
Yes.
this week at Thursday at the show.
she
And
doesn't
man,
age.
when she puts her makeup on and she got her tan on, like you could be like, you would, if someone told you she's 35, you'd be like, okay. Like,
Yeah, she just literally
Yeah.
does not age. I love her.
yeah. So
It's
the
amazing.
sport definitely does help. But Stephanie just has a youthful look. Like she has a daughter that's like, I don't know,
Wait,
20. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
daughter?
Yeah. And when they're standing side by side, you're like, hmm? Like they look like they're several years, like a couple years apart.
That's
Wow,
wild.
that's
But
crazy.
yeah,
Wow.
nothing really changes, I guess. Well, I shouldn't, I didn't dive right into a pro debut. So maybe if I would have done that, things would have been maybe a little bit different, or I would have just had a different perspective, just having that experience of going into a pro show and doing a pro show at this point. But we decided, I remember you asked me right after finals, so you ready for an off season? And I was like, yep, like I'm ready. And so, and I just wanted that time off too, because I knew I needed to grow. Like my glutes are still my lagging part. And, if I want to come back and just feel I want to go into a pro debut just feeling like refreshed and like excited for it. And I felt like if I would have just gone like, within that next month, I would have just been like, well, cool, I did it, but now it's time to go. Like now it's time for an off season. Like I just wouldn't have that, that spark that you get when you're, going into a new season. So
Yeah. And the other thing is I've had a few competitors turn pro, turn right around and do their pro debut. And it's like you come off this high and then you end the season on a low. And I'm like,
yeah.
It
I
was
didn't want
just,
that for you. I really wanted you to end on the high after especially that long journey. Cause I think the next show we were looking at was like Tampa Pro. And I was like, like, let's
It's a big one too.
just go enjoy. Yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking about that. I'm like, gosh, yeah, I'm not to say you wouldn't have done great at a pro show. I mean, who knows? But that would be hard to go from that big high to then end the season on a potential like kind of low
Nice
note.
enough.
So yeah, it sounds like you made a smart call. Not to mention, I mean, you did a lot of shows that required travel too. So I can imagine that. I mean, that adds up over time when you're paying for flights, hotel, all of that. And I mean, nobody ever talks about that, but that is very much so a thing. So it's nice to sometimes just shut it down, build that bank account back up. So that way, you're not stressing the next time you have to compete.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
When I started,
that's a big part of the sport right now. I think, when I talk to people about the numbers being down, money is a big issue, because the promoters are having to raise the prices because the hotels are raising the prices, the venues are raising the prices. So like, I mean, I think the last national show I saw, it's $395 per class.
Wow.
geez, yeah, it's expensive,
Uh,
man. And honestly,
That's just a walk across the stage. Like you still got to do
yeah,
the travel, the hair, the makeup, all that stuff.
And
yeah.
that's the part that I feel like adds up so easily is the flight, the hotel, the makeup, all of that stuff. And yeah, it's tough. I mean, I think that's just one of the pros too of don't be afraid to take some time away from the stage because it's nice to be able to build that bank account back up. I don't feel like you should compete and go into a show like putting yourself in debt, just take a little bit of time, save up so, you can be more.
Hmm.
And I have a
Okay, so I want to make a correction because I don't want anybody from the NPC or the IFBB to get mad at me. North Americans is $300 per class.
okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I have a question. So Maria, for you, this was a question that came through on my Instagram. So thinking back to when you first started this sport and this like journey, has it been harder than you anticipated it to be when you first started?
Yeah. Not not only just the level of competition, like I'd mentioned before, but just the way my, each prep is going to be different. And first prep, second prep, a breeze. Like I was like, this is awesome. Like my body's responding so well. I just, don't get me wrong, it was still hard at times. But compared to, I think even, I think 2022 was like the hardest year for us to get lean. And then I got shin splints. You remember
I
that?
remember that. I remember seeing your Instagram story because what you had to do like stairs because you
I
had the
did the
shin
stairs.
splints. Yeah, I just have a weird memory of like that story. I don't know why, but I remember that.
Probably because Paul never put anyone on stairs at that time, and I was on the stairs, and people were like, why are you on the stairs?" And I'm like, "Because I have to, because that it was just less movement from my ankle that
For
was
whatever
helping."
reason, it's pretty rare, but yeah, the stairs were actually easier on her than walking.
Yeah, it was wild, and but to answer your question, yeah, I think I thought it would be like every prep was going to be like my first prep and my second prep, but then it gets a little bit harder, and I mean, you have other things that come up in life too, and so emotionally you might be getting pulled one way and just trying to stay focused the whole time. So yeah, I mean, it was tough. A lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
I like that answer, and something you said that I think is kind of important to kind of frame here is like every prep that it sounds like every prep that you did was very different, right? Like you kind of at the beginning thought, oh, every prep is going to be like my first prep, but every prep was probably easier or harder than the next. And I think some newer competitors don't like they think that every prep is going to be the same, but I feel like it's pretty common for every prep you do to just be different in its own way.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember. I mean, we used to do burgers and fries before every show. And did we even do burgers and fries this last prep? I don't think we did because,
No, I think we just found the right amount of carbs and fats.
yeah,
Mm,
kind
because
of.
honestly, the burger and fries for you, because you're so muscular, it almost made you too bodybuilder. Like you would really like, I think we might have done it before the Arnold. I don't
We
remember.
did do it before the Arnold.
Yeah, and you just
Yes.
looked crazy that day. Like they never really posted the pictures because that's when like the NPC News Online wasn't shooting. But those
Yeah.
stage pictures of you, if we could find them, are
I
just insane. You looked
Someone
crazy.
actually did send them to me. I'll have to send them to you after this. But yeah, I remember looking back and I was like,
Oh, I have the videos on my
oh
phone.
my
Like,
God.
yeah, you were
Yeah.
just. I remember being like, "Did you pump up your shoulders?" You're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, what did you do?" You're like, "Well, I was holding on to some bands while I did my glutes or something." And I'm like, "Yeah, your
Hmm.
shoulders looked crazy." And
They
I remember
did.
telling you like, "Do not touch your shoulders."
I
Oh,
remember you gave us you gave us a secret, Paul, a couple of podcasts. Well, it was a longer time ago about how to like reduce the
Yeah,
your
vascularity.
pump and the
Yeah.
vascularity. Yeah, you gave us that secret like a couple months ago in a podcast.
Yeah, that's just for vascularity though, but like as far as like having a pump and fullness. And
oh, it was
honestly, that
insane.
the lineup that day, the girls were so much smaller than you. You stood out. Like I feel like if that would have been like nationals a year before, you would have been right where you needed to be, but it was like a
Yeah.
bunch of very smaller competitors.
Oh, I was shocked when I finally saw the photos of just the lineup and me. I was just like, oh no way. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense now seeing it, but then I was like, all these girls are small. Like, what? What? But I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, I stuck out like a sore thumb and I just look massive. My shoulders were huge.
Yeah.
And then we stopped training shoulders. I
Yeah.
didn't,
Yeah.
I think I trained shoulders like once a month for like 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, these are, as a coach, these are lessons you learn. I mean, I've only ever had a few athletes that have had to have stopped training, and you and Daraja are probably it. Um, just literally don't touch the upper body, don't touch anything, just hit some glutes.
Yep. Glutes like 4 times a week now.
At least three.
Lots of
So,
glutes.
but
Yeah. It's like
that's
3 times.
and a lot of people when they're, focusing on like getting their pro card, they, remember why you got into the sport because you like going to the gym. Well, now are you doing a sport that makes you go to the gym less or not? You don't enjoy, the process as much anymore. That's something to think about. Like finding your joy for the gym again. I've had a lot of competitors tell me like,
Hmm.
it took them a year or two after competing to just actually enjoy the gym again.
I've definitely heard that. And, I can honestly say like I've never felt that way. After I step off stage, after a season ends, like I am just ready to get back in there and grow again. Again, it just comes down to, do you love the process and do you love actually training, or are you just training for the sport? Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's embedded in me.
Yeah. Well, any other last minute thoughts or questions that you got that you want to kind of end on? No?
Maria,
Yeah.
you had the questions. I was curious. Like
Oh, question. Oh, okay.
she's
Let
gonna
me see
ask
what
you a
else
few.
we got
Last
here.
ones you want to end on? Because I know we've been.
Well, the next question is, when are you getting back on stage? Everyone wants to know.
Yeah, let's end on that.
Well, we're getting
Hot seat.
married in January, and then we are trying to go to Europe in like May or June because TJ has a wake skate tournament. So we want to go over for that in France. So those are two big things. So we got to figure out when we're gonna, pull the trigger. So I know what we had mentioned more recently about maybe sometime after that, around this time next year, maybe. We'll see kind of
Yeah.
how things go.
Obviously,
I
it's going to be
mean,
how your body responds, how everything's
yes.
going, the process, and then, what the landscape of pro bodybuilding looks like. No one's really noticed, but the shows are changing. So this year, there's almost no pro bikini shows in California. There's one the whole year.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hmm.
No one noticed that. So why is that? Well, the rising cost of the venues and the shrinking number of competitors makes the promoters pull out the pro divisions because they have to pay them money. So I'm expecting, if there are continued to be some smaller shows, that there might be less pro shows, right? Like we're in the era where there is a pro show or multiple pro shows almost every weekend. So we'll see if that
yeah.
continues.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I guess, that plays a role. And to be honest, like, I'm not in a rush. Like, I want to do it, the right way. I want to make sure my body's going to respond. So if that's, this time next year, if that's early 2026, like, so be it. So yeah, we'll see how things go.
Perfect. Yeah, there's
Okay.
definitely no rush, and you're not going to get worse as a competitor just being consistent and going through some major life stuff like a wedding. You do not want to be prepping in and around that. And if you are,
Yeah.
good for you, but
Raja did it.
she would also say don't
I
do
know.
it.
I know.
What
I think
part
we talked
of
about it.
what part of Europe are you guys gonna go to?
So the contest is in southern France, and then I told him, I'm like, if we're going all the way over there, I'm going to Italy. So that will be kind of our game plan, is Italy for sure.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to have you on, and
That's
hopefully
right.
the listeners enjoyed hearing a little bit about your story. Hopefully they feel inspired, and hopefully if anybody's listening to this and, they enjoy it, tag us, post on Instagram. We always appreciate the support there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keep us in the
This is
loop, and
fun.
then so I guess by the time this comes out, we'll be looking at, I think, Nashville. And is there another show on the same day as Nashville? I feel like there is. Maybe not.
Um,
Is it Phoenix and Nashville on the same day?
Phoenix was this past weekend. Well,
Nope.
oh,
Nope. Phoenix has not happened yet. So Phoenix maybe next weekend. No. Well, we'll figure it out. I don't know. Hold on.
Yeah.
I actually created a list and sent it to all my pros. Okay, so we've got this weekend is, oh no, Nashville is the 17th, the same day as Max Fit, but that's only Masters. And then the following weekend, you've got Clash, Arizona Pro, and Tokyo Pro on the same day.
okay. That's right. Clash in South Carolina.
Yeah, Clash is South Carolina, Arizona is in Phoenix, and then Tokyo's in Japan. So
Tokyo's obviously in Japan, yes.
yeah, I've got Sally, my Japanese Olympian from 2 years ago.
Oh
She's
yeah.
doing the Tokyo Pro.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
exciting.
awesome.
I feel
So
like
she
those
looks.
shows over there, from what I've seen from afar, oh my gosh, they go all out for those. Like, aren't those the shows where sometimes they like have the platform on the stage and the
Yeah,
competitors are like spinning? Like it's really elaborate.
yeah, I've seen some of that stuff too. I've wanted to go to some of those international shows. It's such a stretch right now with all the travel I do. But
Mhm.
and I did the London show, which was shockingly easy to get to and get home. But Tokyo, that's a whole nother, that's like 30 hours of travel each way.
Yeah,
Not to
I've
mention
done a
coming home and adjusting back to normal time zone. Like, yeah,
Well,
that
and
would
if I'm flying 30 hours, I'm not staying Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm going to stay a whole week, right?
Oh,
right,
you have to. I
right.
did, yeah, I've done that trip before, and you have to spend some time there because
Yeah.
the jet lag and just, oh, it's so long.
So, yep. And then it's only a couple more weeks. We've got about a month left to the final qualifications for the Olympia.
Yes, exciting. And
So
then
September
Yeah.
14th, Battle of the Bodies and San Antonio are on the same day. That's the final show.
Mhm.
Nice.
Oh gosh, I still remember 2 years ago. I had Lana in center in San Antonio and Brittany in center in Battle of the Bodies, and they both got second. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that was such
Uh,
a rough day.
wait, no, wasn't 2 years ago? Didn't Brittany win San Antonio? I thought that was 2 years ago because I remember.
Oh, then I think it might have been Hurricane. They were on the same day that year. Hurricane and San Antonio.
Okay.
It might be a different San Antonio. This because there's two San Antonio
There are
pros.
two. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This year Hurricane's after the Olympia. But yeah, I remember Lana was in center at San Antonio and Brittany was in center at Hurricane. They both took second. Yeah.
So
So.
close. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up here.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will catch you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Pro Physique Code.